Well. Good morning, kids. How is everybody doing? I hope you're doing fine. I've got my coffee. I hope you have yours too. Welcome to another The Abyss AM edition. I am, of course, your host, The Eternal Abyss. Excuse the noises of the chairs moving around here because I'm trying to get my stool properly situated. Oh boy. What can happen in the span of 24 hours? But we're here. We're going to talk about it. There's a couple interesting news items that have come out, and obviously we're gonna pontificate about that a little bit. Before that, though, I definitely need to say hello and greet all the people on the various platforms that I'm streaming on. Thank you, Troll, for the call to arms here. To bring people over in the very courteous manner that you usually do. Yes, I am on. I am live, and I have coffee. Whoa. What the hell was that? Did you guys hear that? Something happened. I'm going to have to explore around and see what exactly went down here. Goodness. Well. Yeah, I'm kind of like Captain America, you know, in the movie when he said language. We can beat up bad guys that want to kill people, but no naughty words. Nah, listen, if you guys want to cuss, go ahead. It's fine. Doesn't matter to me at the end of the day. That's free speech. Sorry for desecrating your stream. That bridge was burned a long time ago, Troll. That bridge was burned a long time ago. When it comes to desecration and the blasphemy and naughty words during a stream, I don't think this stream is gonna be brought up to the Vatican for any sort of canonization or anything like that anytime soon. But we are here. We're gonna talk about stuff, and as I said, I want to greet everybody on all the different platforms that I'm on. I want to say hello, of course, to everybody on Bitwave, which I've already started talking to a few folks there. I want to say hello to the folks on Periscope, folks on Twitch, on DLive, on YouTube, and of course on Float.app, because I am floatcasting as well. So hello, and I hope you enjoyed the stream. Let me get up my little group chat here for all the different stuff. There we are. Now I can monitor everything. Yay. So, one of the big things that happened last evening, relatively late, not too late, but relatively late, was the vote in the Senate for Amy Coney Barrett. Correction. She is now Justice Amy Coney Barrett. So there we go. That happened. This is good news. Whether you like her or not, whether you're a conservative or a liberal, whether you're a Republican or a Democrat, really you should be appreciative of the fact that you have someone on the court who is a constitutionalist. Now, I know a lot of people on certain political spectrums don't like that too much, but hear me out on this for a moment. I just want to ask a couple quick, simple questions to the kids there across the aisle politically. Would you rather someone just decide arbitrarily, out of the windmills of their minds, what exactly a law means based off of their own volition? Or would you rather have someone who is looking at the Constitution for what it is, looking at the law for what it is, looking at precedent for what it is? Would you rather have that? Or would you rather just have a judge that pulls stuff out of their ass, basically? Because if you want someone if you care at all about the law, and that's the premise here, is that if you care at all about the law, if you care at all about people's rights, as many claim they do, on both sides of the aisle, many people claim that they care about the law, they care about people's rights, but it seems like it's very arbitrary in what that caring is about, what the scope of that is. So if you care at all about the rule of law, if you care at all about constitutionality, if you care at all about the integrity of our justice system, and if you care at all about the separation of the branches as well of our three branches of government, see, unlike AOC, I know the three branches of government. They're the executive branch, the judicial branch, and the legislative branch. So if you care at all about that sort of thing, as you claim you do, then Amy Coney Barrett is not a bad choice. And it's particularly sad to me that the voting went along strictly partisan lines, essentially. However, if I'm not mistaken, the only Republican dissenter of this was Susan Collins, which doesn't surprise me. Romney went along with it, actually. Yeah. Romney voted yay. Lisa Murkowski voted yay. These people are usually just rhinos. I think Lisa Murkowski, it's funny. Lisa Murkowski is towing a thin line right now, it appears, because I think her seat's in jeopardy, so she's trying to do what she can to keep it. So she's going along. I think she got some bad polls coming back, because initially she was kind of against this whole thing, and then she came around. Romney as well. I think Romney has found that he has been catching a lot of flack from his constituency, probably, as well as getting a lot of flack from conservatives all over. So maybe he's coming around to a couple things because of that reason as well. I don't know. I really can't say what the full reasoning is behind Murkowski and Romney going along with the voting and saying yay. However, I'm appreciative that they did, because this isn't something that should be just a partisan issue. Unfortunately, it became one. It shouldn't be. But it seems like every time Republicans nominate a justice to the Supreme Court, Democrats don't even want to talk to them, don't even want to consider them, don't even want to, it becomes this pulling the Democrats by the ankles through this whole process. Yeah, that's very much true, Troll. But and I'll address that in just a moment. But yeah, it basically you're dragging the Democrats through this process every single time. This is not something that's a recent development. Every time at least since Reagan, since Clarence Thomas, for example, every time a Republican nominee was at the Supreme Court, it has been it's been rather a brouhaha, really. Now, not all brouhahas are equal, of course. Like none of the nomination processes went the way of Kavanaugh. None were as crazy and insane as that. At least in recent memory, I don't recall any being that crazy. However, you had the same kind of accusations against Clarence Thomas. You had the same kind of belligerent and disgusting behavior, especially from people like Joe Biden when he was on the Judiciary Committee back then, if I'm not mistaken. And there's clips of him being incredibly disrespectful towards Clarence Thomas. There's clips of him saying the most idiotic things. In fact, there's an interview, which is funny. I can't remember the specific topic that they were talking about. If I find this clip, I'll try and rewatch it and address it more carefully. But there's this clip of of Joe Biden, back then senator, talking to Clarence Thomas regarding this matter of law. And then years later, there's the present day when the interview is done. They go back to Clarence Thomas present day during the interview, present day, quote unquote, because I don't know how old that interview was. And Clarence Thomas, they have a shot of him going, I had no idea what he was talking about. He was speaking nonsense. There was nothing logical. There was nothing. What he was saying just made no sense. Basically, the guy's just talking legal gobbledygook, essentially, and he's like, I don't even know what he's talking about. Like, I'm just sitting there going, huh? What? So that just goes to show you that Biden's history of, prolific pontification is just stellar. But anyways, moving forward with that whole thing, it seems like a lot of these senators, like Romney won't win a midterm if he keeps going the way he was going. There's a lot of people. I think Susan Collins is going to lose her seat, frankly. I feel that she is just too far gone into rhino territory, and I think she's losing by double digits right now. I mean, she's going to cost a Senate seat. Romney going along may be a sign of a Trump victory. That is true, and I think there's a lot of these rhinos and these never Trumper Republicans, because they're not necessarily the same thing, but they kind of are. There's overlap. There is a realization that, you know what, your milquetoast, wet noodle spine Republican politician system of doing things is a thing of the past. It's a thing that just doesn't exist anymore, for now at least. Yeah, Illustrator, that's definitely possible that people of Maine would rather have a dependable leftist than an occasional Republican. I mean, because that's what they got with Susan Collins, basically, was essentially a leftist in Republican clothing. She never really acted or spoke as a Republican. I don't even know why she ran as a Republican. Like, I don't know why she hasn't switched parties, to be honest with you. Or at least run it, or at least say, you know what, I'm an independent. It does take out guesswork. Oh, yeah. Yeah, that is very true, G. Gallon. I mean, Troll. That's a good point, that if Dems win, it won't matter if he voted or not. But if Trump wins, he'll be remembered for going against the president a week before election. And that is true. That is true. And I think that internal polling, I mean, Trump has been talking a lot about his internal polling. He's been talking a lot about how these states, like what he's seeing in terms of numbers and the rallies and the energy and support, has been astronomical. Now, you take a look at what the polls are showing, quote unquote, the polls. Up until like even yesterday, you have certain polls that keep saying that, oh, Biden's ahead by double digits, which is nonsense. And now you have certain states that are actual dead heats. Excuse me, I gotta get a Kleenex. So you have states that are definitely in play. Excuse me one moment. All right. Pardon me about that. I had to just blow my nose real quick. My sinuses have a mind of their own, apparently. I apologize for that. But you have polls now that are pretty much dead heat. Both candidates are within margin of error, and these are skewed polls for the left. None of this matters when David Sponheim becomes president. Hope springs eternal, doesn't it, Troll? Well, the thing, you know what's funny regarding that Illustrator? Because Illustrator is saying that polls are used to sway the elections before. Now people running the polls have their credibility to think about. You know what's funny about that to me is that I don't disagree. I believe that polls in the past have been used to try and sway public opinion on matters, as trying to sway elections, social engineering. Absolutely, because polls are so arbitrary in how they can be done. At the end of the day, polls are virtually meaningless because you can ask the same people two different questions that are basically the same thing but just reworded, and you get different answers. So that goes to show me how insignificant polls can really be. So one thing, though, regarding polls and regarding the election that is very, very fascinating right now is that you have about 50 million. Is it 50 million votes already cast? I think it's 50 million. I'm not entirely sure the exact number of votes that have already been cast in all the mail-in ballots and early voting. But it is rather fascinating right now that after the third debate and all this Hunter Biden stuff that's come out, you have had massive searches in Google. One of the top searched items is, can I change my vote? That is, on one side, eye-opening because it makes you really realize that a lot of people have buyer's remorse. They voted for Biden because that's what it seems to have happened here, that they voted for Biden and they want to change their vote to Trump. Now, the fascinating thing is this. You can actually do that in certain states. It appears that in states, I have an article up. Oops, wrong page. Where'd that go? Oh, come on. I thought I had that up here. Hold on. High quality production, kids. So Trump actually tweeted about this, though. He tweeted about this saying that, people wanted to change their vote. And apparently you can. I can't find the page anymore. I had that up. Let's see. So this is the article. I was looking at the Atlanta News here, AJC.com, and they're talking about that if you cast your ballot early and you change your mind, you actually can, in certain states, change your vote. As I mentioned, Trump tweeted about this. It's one of the biggest there's a big, strong Google search trend, according to this. So the states that allow you to do this are Connecticut, Michigan, Minnesota, Mississippi, New York, Pennsylvania, and Wisconsin. Some of these are very much battleground states, so that's pretty fascinating. They're saying that more than 50 million votes have already been cast. I am not sure I've seen those numbers before, so I find that a little interesting that that's the number that this article goes with. I would have to see if that's in fact true. I don't have any reason to doubt that at this moment, but let's just go with it. I'm not gonna deal with that. So the interesting thing is this: each one of those seven states kind of have their own rules, because that's the interesting thing about our electoral system, is that states are left to manage things on the ground for certain things when it comes to the federal election. So, in Minnesota, for example, you must do it by Tuesday, which is today, I believe. You have to do it by today, or maybe by today. I don't think you could do it up until next, because now we're just 7 days away. We're just a week away from election, kids. Crazy. But you have to do that by today. So, hey, if you're in Minnesota and you want to change your vote for Trump and you want to get rid of Ilhan Omar, do it. Do it, especially for Ilhan Omar. We don't need terrorists in our legislature. You don't need people who are anti-Semitic. You don't need racists. You don't need sexists. You don't need homophobic people like Ilhan Omar in the legislation, in our legislative branch. These people that are anti-American, out. You need to get rid of them. There's no if, and, or buts about it. Wisconsin, you are allowed to vote up to 3 times. Not, vote and then vote and then vote. You can change your vote 3 times, up to 3 times. You can keep changing your mind. Officials say that doesn't happen very often, apparently, in this article. Doesn't mean, hey, if the process is there, though, it means it has happened and the process is there for that reason. So before election, apparently you can do that. In swing states like Pennsylvania, you can change your absentee ballot up to election day. However, in Pennsylvania, you have to go there in person. So each state has their own rules. If you are in those states and you have buyer's remorse and you say, gee, I think I'd rather have Trump than Biden. If you are one of those voters that, you basically got kicked in the fanny by the Democrats in terms of all this nonsense that they've put out there now, and you realize how terrible the choice is of having Biden as a president, which it is, by all means, if your state allows you to change your ballot and change your vote to Trump, do so. I encourage that. However, this is also an interesting discussion when it comes to Biden remorse. Exactly. Well, Omar, yeah, she got elected via fraud, basically. And that's what I was getting at, G Gallon. See, you're getting ahead of me, sir. No, what ends up happening is, to me, is this is a clear indication to me that there is a big problem with early voting. If you have to put a process in place for people who change their minds, that means they shouldn't be voting early in the first place. That's really what it boils down to. So that is what I would say, in the sense that there are circumstances, like if you're serving in the military, if you're an elected official, like Trump could have voted absentee because he has to be in DC most of the time, even though he went to Florida and voted in person because that's where his residency is. So he actually did go and vote in person. That shows me that there's a big problem with this sort of thing, that outside of those specific carved out circumstances, you should not allow early voting. I don't really think you should allow that. And if making Election Day a federally recognized holiday so everybody can take it off, so you open up the day for everybody to go there and they don't have to worry about work, they don't have to worry about other things, they just go, then I say great. Do that. I'm not opposed to that. Honestly, I don't see that as a problem. I don't know if I would designate it a holiday per se, but I would designate it a day where you. Well, that's true that even on federal holidays, most businesses are open. But being that it is a federal holiday, a business can have limited hours. They can close. You have banks are closed. You have many corporate offices are closed on federal holidays. I I mean, if many places can close for Martin Luther King Jr. Day, on his birthday, if I'm not mistaken, if many businesses close for that, it's not far-fetched for me that you can close for election day. But yeah, a federal holiday doesn't necessarily guarantee that they would be closed. However, the fact that it is a federal holiday would mean that opens up the possibility that businesses can either reduce their hours, can work around the election, and have people be more involved in the process. I don't see that as a negative thing per se, honestly. Because the one thing that I've always griped about is I've always felt that people are just not involved enough in politics. And I'm not saying that everybody has to be an activist. I'm not saying everybody has to be, a lobbyist, or everybody needs to blog about this stuff and everybody needs to tweet about this stuff. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying that it's good to be just tuned in. Be informed. Don't just accept what the media tells you. Or don't accept ridiculous polls, what they tell you. With this last election in 2016 and this election now that we're having in 2020, if anything, the one takeaway from both elections is that you can't trust anybody. In terms of the media, you can't trust politicians, you can't trust polling. There's very little out there that you can really trust. And if that's the case, you need to make that extra effort to be informed about things. If you want to learn about, all this process of nominating a Supreme Court justice, you got to go out there and learn about it. There's sources out there that'll tell you. If you want to learn about Second Amendment issues, you go out there and learn about it. There's plenty of information out there, and it doesn't necessarily have to be like a conservative or liberal source. In that sense, I mean, it doesn't necessarily mean that you have to isolate yourself to a specific ideological source for your news. You can go on both. Like if you're left leaning, you can listen to Steven Crowder, for example. And if you're conservative, you can see what Vox is saying about certain things. It doesn't necessarily mean they're right, but at least you're looking at the full spectrum. At least you're getting all perspectives, and I think that's important. Because from there, you'll see where the truth is. It's very difficult to take the blinders of ideology off. I mean, everybody has a level of bias in them. Everybody has a level of rose-colored glasses that they keep on when it comes to what they want to see in terms of what they view as truth, what they view as fact. So the way I see it is open yourself up to different ideological perspectives. It doesn't mean you have to just accept everything at face value, but at least you just open yourself up to it, and you can see what people are talking about in different spectrums here, and then from there you can make your decision. But you have to be informed, though. That's the thing. You have to look for information at the end of the day. You have to look at the data. You have to look at the facts. And I'm not talking about like skewed statistics and things like that. I'm talking about just straight up what facts are. Like the simplest example that I can give you is like throughout the years, I've seen a lot of people debate about, Second Amendment issues. And there is this big misunderstanding about, like, for example, what AR means in an AR-15. Many people that argue for the banning of an AR-15 don't even know what AR stands for. many people that argue against Second Amendment rights and or argue for gun control, a lot of times they don't even know what a semi-automatic rifle means in terms of what semi-automatic means, that it's one pull of a trigger, one bullet comes out, versus a fully automatic. You pull the trigger once and a bunch of bullets come out. And I'm not saying that to like try and jab people or insult people saying, oh, you're just stupid, you don't know what you're talking about. No. Listen, it's very easy to just be ignorant on a subject. There are many subjects that I am not an expert on. I don't know the information. I have to go out there and learn about them before I can talk about it. Like I am not an expert in biochemistry, for example. So I am not going to go and write a dissertation on chemical reactions that I don't know anything about. I have to study what those chemical reactions are. I have to rely on reliable sources that gives me just information without bias, or with as little bias as possible, to just get the basic foundation of information that I need to then be able to make an informed decision about certain things. So that's really what it boils down to for me when it comes to political. Yeah, I know, right, G Gallon? But like one thing that I didn't know about, for example, was the fact that you can apparently pull a mulligan on early voting. I was not aware of that. When I saw that tweet this morning that Trump said that people were looking on how to change their vote, and he said, yes, you can. And I go, what? In fact, I even retweeted that. I was like, you can? What? The hell you say, sir? I was shocked at that. I was like, really? You can do that? I wasn't aware. So I had to go out and I did that research. I looked at a couple of articles about it. I was like, oh, look at that. Ain't that interesting? On stream, was it a week ago? I think it was a week ago, maybe a week and a half ago, when we were talking about if there is a process for removing a justice off the Supreme Court. I was not aware of what the process was. Turns out it's just like removing the president. It's an impeachment process. Who knew? That's what I mean. And that has nothing to do with like politics. This isn't a partisan bit of information. It's not like it's a conservative impeachment or a liberal impeachment. No, it's just if that's what the process is, enumerated and elaborated in the Constitution and in the law of our country, that's just what it is. So that's kind of what I mean about, if I was ignorant about that. So if there is this level of not knowing that's in this country, there's a lot of that, unfortunately. There's a lot of people that they latch on to these things, these little political hooks, and they just stay on those political hooks, and they don't want to get off of those political hooks. I mean, just look what happened here in Pennsylvania recently. It's in Philadelphia. You have 12 officers that were injured because there was some sort of shooting that happened that killed a black man, and now all of a sudden there's riots, there's violence. A female officer got run over in a truck. I mean, it's insanity. And I don't even know the details of the case. And how did these people know what exactly happened? All they know is that that someone died at the hands of the police, and the assumption there is guilty until proven innocent and racist until proven innocent. Well, see, my argument has always been that it is necessary to know, though. Illustrator, I've always advocated. Oh, he had a knife? Well, okay. See, I don't know anything about this case. I just saw this morning, right before the stream, so I don't know the facts. I'm not going to elaborate on the facts, but generally speaking, when a fatal shooting happens with the police, Oh, as necessary. Yes. Okay, that I can agree with that, Illustrator, that it hasn't been as necessary to know until now. However, I would still argue that it is as necessary now. I mean, it's become much more prevalent now, for sure, which has caused more people to want to be informed about these sort of things. But even back, like, I don't know, 10, 20, 30 years, even since Reagan, I would argue that you don't have enough involvement in politics. I mean, I would have to look back at the statistics in terms of voter participation percentiles. It seems to me that as time goes on, the percentile has dropped. Now there's an uptick because of what's been going on recently. So the uptick is a positive thing. The reason for it, maybe not so much. Because I don't think that all this controversy that the media is drumming up is a good thing. And all this controversy that the other politicians are bringing up I don't think it's a good thing, because it's very partisan. It's very much designed to intimidate and attack people. I don't agree with that. So there's this big sense of us versus them, the people versus the elites, because that's what's happening right now. I've mentioned this many times on my stream, because I completely agree with Tucker Carlson and Levin when it comes to the fact that this is a populism versus globalism, elites versus the people, statists versus non-statists, as Levin would put it. So to me, this is very existential to what the United States is about. This is supposed to be about the people. I mean, that's what our government was made for, right? It was made. It was a government for the people, by the people, and of the people. And it's turned out, as time has passed, that there's less and less and less people being considered when things are happening in government versus the elites. Fatal police shooting of his name was Walter Wallace Jr. prompts heated overnight protests in West Philly. Thank you so much for the article, Illustrator. Much appreciated. Let's take a look at what this says, all right? This is the Philadelphia Inquirer. A police officer, or police officers, fatally shot a 27-year-old black man armed with a knife during a confrontation Monday afternoon in West Philadelphia. An incident that quickly raised tensions in the neighborhood and sparked a standoff that lasted deep into the night. Late Monday into early Tuesday, police struggled to respond to vandalism and looting along the commercial corridor of 52nd Street, an area that was the scene of clashes between police and protesters earlier this summer. At least one police vehicle was set on fire Monday night and destroyed. By morning, an officer was hospitalized in stable condition with a broken leg after being struck by a pickup truck, police said. About 29 other officers suffered mostly minor injuries from being struck by rocks, bricks, and other projectiles, police said in a preliminary report. Authorities detained 10 people overnight near 55th and Pine Street, police said, and those people were said to be released pending possible charges of assaulting police or rioting. Police said officers arrested about 20 people in relation to looting at various stores in West Philadelphia, University City, Overbrook Park, and Center City, some of which were not near the protest. 6 law enforcement vehicles were also vandalized, police said. Hours earlier, shortly before 4 p.m., police said 2 officers responded to the 6100 block of Locust Street after a report of a man with a knife. Family members identified him as Walter Wallace Jr. A video posted on social media showed Wallace walking towards the officer and police backing away. The video swings briefly out of view at the moment the gunfire erupts, but he appears to be multiple feet from them when they fired numerous shots. Police spokesperson Sergeant Eric Grip said that the officers had ordered Wallace to drop the weapon, and he advanced towards the officers. Gribb said investigators are reviewing footage of what happened. Both officers were wearing body cameras. He said both officers fired several times. After the man was shot, he fell to the ground, and Gribb said one of the officers drove him to Penn Presbyterian Medical Center where he died. Walter Wallace Sr., the man's father, said his son appeared to have been shot 10 times. Why didn't they use a taser? The Sr. Wallace asked outside a family residence on the block. His mother was trying to defuse the situation. He said his son struggled with mental health issues and was on medication. He has mental issues, Wallace said. Why do you have to gun him down? One witness, Maurice Holloway, said he was on the street talking to his aunt when he saw police arrive. Wallace had a knife and was standing on the porch of his home. Holloway said the officers immediately drew their guns. Wallace's mother chased after him as he walked down the steps of his porch, still holding the knife. According to Holloway, his mother tried to shield Wallace and tell police he was her son. I'm yelling, put down the gun, put down the gun. And everyone is saying, don't shoot him, he's going to put it down, we know him, said Holloway, 35. Wallace brushed off his mother and walked behind a car before emerging again, Holloway said. He turns and then you hear the shots, Holloway said. They were too far from him. It was so many shots. Gribb said it was unclear how many times the man was shot or where he was struck. The officer fired possibly a dozen or more times, according to an account by witnesses and family members. Police marked the crime scene with at least 13 evidence markers. Both officers who were not publicly identified were taken off street duty pending an investigation. Police Commissioner Daniel Outlaw arrived at the scene shortly after the incident as a crowd of neighbors yelled at police and questioned the use of force. By 6:30 p.m., police reopened the street and the crowd had largely dispersed. But dozens of protesters then gathered at Malcolm X Park at 51st Street and Pine Street, chanting Black Lives Matter. They marched to the police station on 55th and Pine Street as they chanted, "Say his name, Walter Wallace." For hours, protesters confronted officers who stood in a line with riot shields behind metal barricades at the station. People in the crowd could be seen throwing objects at the officers. A group also marched into University City. At least one TV news vehicle was vandalized, and police reported that windows had been broken on Chestnut Street. Between 100 and 200 people then moved to the 52nd Commercial District and caused considerable property damage from Market to Spruce Streets. Shortly before 1 a.m., a speeding black truck ran over an officer at 52nd and Walnut Street. The incident was captured on an Instagram live stream. The condition of the officer was not immediately known. Well, okay, there's a lot more here. A community organizer, Arnett Woodall, he saw the video, said, why not a warning shot? Why not a taser? Why not a shot in the leg? Because, one, you don't do really warning shots. Anybody who owns a gun knows that when you pull a gun, you don't do warning shots. The point of a gun is to use the gun. You keep it on your target. Simple. If you want to keep a target in check, you don't wave it around, you don't shoot it in the air, you got to keep it on your target. I'm not saying this is right and wrong what happened with this particular case. I'm just saying general modus operandi of gun use is you pull it out when you're ready to use it. You don't pull it out just for willy-nilly and for show. Tasers, I've seen so many videos of tasers being used and perpetrators still getting up right after getting tased. They could have tried to use that. I think it may have just delayed the inevitable. Who knows? I don't know. That's an unknown at this point. If there was reason to believe that that a taser would not have been efficient in this use, in this scenario, then you have to see what the investigation brings up, because the officers will probably tell people what the justification is. I mean, tell the people in charge of the investigation what the reasoning was for that. Shot in the leg. Again, many times I've seen videos of people getting shot in extremities, arms, legs, things like that. They still get up. They still chase after the cop. So this whole shot in the leg argument that even Biden made at one point, that's nonsense. So the police were backing. Yeah, police were backing away. He had a knife. And see, this is the thing that people don't understand. Okay, what people don't understand is this. I understand that you have people like his mother and other people saying, "Oh, he'll drop the knife. He'll drop the knife." As long as he has the knife in his hand, though, or as long as someone has a weapon in their hand, it doesn't matter how many people around him say he's gonna drop it. He's gonna drop it. If he does not drop it, he's not dropping it. The only thing that matters at the end of the day is who has the knife and what he's doing with it. That's what's going on. Now, if he had mental health issues, why the hell does he even have access to a knife? Yeah, people watch too many gunslinger movies where Clint Eastwood disarms an entire gang by shooting the guns out of their hands. Yeah, that's true. I think there's a big misconception. First of all, I don't think people realize how difficult it is to stay on target when you're shooting a gun, first of all. There's no call to violence, alt-right. Stop. What I think that needs to happen is this. I think that there has to be first of all education in the community. I think people need to understand first of all what it means to be resisting arrest. Because a lot of times with these stories, you have people resisting arrest and you have protesters saying he didn't resist arrest when he was indeed resisting arrest when you look at the video. He or she, whoever it is, you know. That's a big problem. Again, this goes back to what I was talking about when it comes to being to ignorance. It's about not knowing. Like, your definition of resisting arrest is not what police consider resisting arrest, or vice versa. What you consider not resisting, police consider resisting. So you have to look at what their rules are, because once you're dealing with the police, you're playing that game. It's kind of like if if I'm playing GTA, they have a set of rules and parameters that I gotta abide by to play in that game, or else things, I can't break the rules of the game. Each police department needs its own Michael Winslow to make goofy noises to diffuse the situation. Maybe. This is the thing. Well, first of all, a police officer is not gonna put down their gun because a mother is saying put down the gun. I mean, I'm sorry. I understand a mother wanting to protect her son. By all means, I completely understand that. But seriously, an officer is not going to say, "Oh, you're his mother. You tell me to put down my gun. Okay, sure. Let me do that while he comes at me with a knife." It's just not going to happen. Okay, it's not going to happen. He brought a Telstar arcade to an Xbox fight, essentially. But no, to me, what needs to happen is this: there has to be, first of all, this outreach to the community to educate them about what it means to be a police officer. One of the most interesting videos I ever saw was a Black Lives Matter protester who was invited to do police training. And he realized after the training, how quickly things escalate. How if someone has a knife, it's very normal in the training of a police officer to pull out the gun to stop the guy. So that's what it boils down to. I've been saying that a lot today. Boils down to, but it does, and that's one thing that I think is very, very educational. I don't think this is just something that protesters need to look at. I think everybody, honestly, even myself, anybody, if you're conservative, if you're liberal, if you're Democrat, if you're Republican, if you're a protester and a rioter, or you're a non. If you're a law-abiding citizen, I think it would behoove anyone to educate yourself about that sort of thing. If you go through that and you understand what police have to go through in those kind of situations, that would really open your eyes. And then, you know what's even better? You go through that, you see the training that they do, and whether you agree with it or not, even if you see their perspective, you can say, hey, you know what? I understand why cops make those decisions. Now I'm more informed. Now I can actually have an informed opinion on this and saying, you know, maybe there are certain things that you can do with the training to improve on that. Also coffee. I have coffee, yes. And no, troll, I've never been arrested. Excuse me. So, I think this is the first step is that. The first step is, if you don't like how police are doing things, how about you go and participate in the training and see firsthand what it means to be a police officer. Once you see firsthand what it means, walk in those person's shoes for a moment. I don't know if a lot of you people have read To Kill a Mockingbird or watched the movie. With Gregory Peck, you know, the old black and white movie. I don't think they ever made a remake of that, did they? I hope they didn't, because that's the kind of movie you don't make a remake of. That was a very well-made movie back then, and it should just be left alone. But apart from that, To Kill a Mockingbird, Boo Radley, that's right. Hey, Boo. It's a good movie. It's a really good movie. Anytime there is any interaction with a police officer, you know, if a police officer has to interact with anybody, there's always a risk. There's always a risk. And I mean a risk to the police officer here. I'm not even talking about the person getting pulled over. The risk goes both ways. But there's risk involved. Which is why, well, the book was definitely better. Yes, for sure, G. Gallon. No doubt about that. But the movie was really good too. I liked the movie. It was really well made. And there was that one quote in the movie that I found very fascinating, is when Gregory Peck is talking to Scout, his daughter, and is saying, you know, to understand people, to get a real perspective of who they are, you need to walk in their shoes for a while. Put yourself in their place. Put yourself in their try and view things from their perspective. Well, no, I wouldn't do a ride along. I would show them the training, which does, because this training, like I said, this video that I saw, this Black Lives Matter protester, he was actually one of the organizers, if I'm not mistaken. He did the training where they did mock scenarios where one cop pretended to be a perpetrator with a knife or whatever, and they had a fake gun, and they just went through these kind of like role playing and these sketches, essentially, this role playing scenarios to train people how to react and how to behave. And at the end of it, he said it really opened his eyes, and he understood how these decisions are just split-second decisions, that a cop has to make this sort of decision where you don't know if they're going to pull a knife out or a gun out. You don't know. And I'm not saying that this justifies police officers shooting every single time. Every shooting incident, obviously, there's a lot of variables. It's G.G. Allen, by the way. Is it G.G. Allen? Because if it is, I apologize for mispronouncing your name consistently. Well, most Americans do comply. Actually, most Americans do comply. Giga SP3D88. I like Gallon. Gallon. Well, either way, I've always called you G Gallon for some reason, but Gallon works, GG Allen works for me. Like either way, I can call you G. Hey G. No, but really, if you look at the statistics, most people comply. In fact, most people that get shot by the police are actually white people, statistically speaking. Which speaks volumes at the end of the day when you really look at the numbers. So it's very interesting to me that the group that has less interactions actually gets shot more, and when the group that has more interactions gets shot less. Well, I mean, Illustrator, for a while at the beginning of my stream, long time ago when I started streaming, I would do these runs, like these just perpetual streamings, just to test the whole process here. I put on the Sovereign Citizen videos. Have you seen those? Has anybody seen Sovereign Citizen videos? Those are the funniest things you ever seen in your life. USMC changed their pistol training to include checking your surroundings and ammo before holstering. Supposedly people would immediately holster their pistol in combat because that's how they did it in training. Yeah. Yeah. That wouldn't surprise me. I mean, you need there's always a listen, I am not opposed to reevaluating training. I'm not opposed to looking at what better ways police officers can do their job, because there's nothing wrong with wanting to keep improving. But there also has to be an education on the other side of the aisle. I mean, these people need to understand when you're interacting with the police, you're entering that arena, that sports arena, and you have to abide by the rules of that game, of that sport. But yeah, sovereign citizens are the funniest things in the world. And that's the problem. I like people will, like I said, people will hook on to certain things. People will latch on to these ideologies. They will latch on to these rose-colored view of the, well, rose-colored, but certain colored view of the world. Well, that's the other thing too, Gallon. That's the other thing too, is that most people don't understand what the role of a police officer is. He's not there to be judge and jury, and and get into a legal, scholarly, academic debate about what is going on. They are called because a crime is in progress, and they are there to stop the crime and get the perpetrator and bring him to the police station. That's their job. Getting into a debate with a police officer, for example, trying to debate the finer points of legalities of an action, trying to use a police officer as a mental health person. Aren't they supposed to be like Judge Dredd? Not quite alt-right. Oh, you gotta watch those, dude. You gotta watch those, Illustrator. They are the funniest things in the world. Just go on YouTube and put on sovereign citizens getting owned. It is the funniest crap you will ever see in your life. I warn you though, the level of cringe is pretty high. Well, that's too. If you're high on drugs or you're influenced, you're under the influence of something, that definitely affects your judgment. And most officers, depending on the situation, they gotta react to the situation as it is. And even if you're impaired, if you're a risk to yourself and others, they're gonna have to stop you. Well, that's why some mistakes do happen. YHG Drizzle. I'll just call you Drizzle. That can happen. Mistakes can happen too because of training. Like if you're trained that if you see something that looks like a gun and you think it's a gun and you're gonna shoot. I mean, that's why you have people with BB guns or toys that get shot too, because as part of the training, instinct kicks in. That instinct kicks in. It's kind of like martial arts. When you practice martial arts, one thing that I've always found fascinating about martial arts is that at a certain point, the higher cognitive levels drop down. In the sense that when you train so much to do this sort of combat, instinct can take over very easily. And it takes a lot of mental focus and a lot of mental training to be able to rein in that instinct and control it. Oh yeah, there's this one video of a sovereign citizen